Fallout 3, contrary to what I may have said in my own review of it, Fallout 3 quickly becomes this perfect Mobius strip of bullshit. Is and always has been one of my favourite games of all time. I actually remember reading a review of it on GameSpot and being outraged that they only gave it a 9 out of 10. Years later, I of course discovered H-Bomber Guy's somewhat negative review of Fallout 3. Dressed in my patented Vault suit with my Pip-Boy, Fallout laser rifle and Fallout beer, I clicked on the video. Fully ready to disagree with everything in the video, it instead over the course of a full hour and a half took everything I loved about Fallout 3 and convinced me it was bad. No, not really, but it did make me see that although Fallout 3 was great, it was not by any means perfect. The setting, tone and side quests were all on point, but the story, pacing and difficulty of the game could have all been so much better. So here Fallout 3 sat, a great game that fell short of being incredible. If only Bethesda, who owned the intellectual property to the Fallout franchise, would contract a company like Obsidian, made up of the original writers and designers of the first games, to make a follow-up to Fallout 3 so they could finally reclaim their mantle and create the perfect 3D Fallout game.
Well. Quickly before we start, if you remember in my last major Fallout video, I was kidnapped by my cat. Well, I'm actually worried it's gonna happen again, so excuse me for 1 second.
I am feeling strangely docile today. You've made a big mistake, human.
So my story begins in late 2010 when Fallout New Vegas had just come out. I went over to my friend's house while we were living at university to hang out, and he was playing it.
Hey man. Ooh, what are you playing? Fallout New Vegas. It's a bit shit. Bethesda didn't even make it. Oh, that's a shame. Should we get a drink?
Jesus Christ, this was like tuning into genuine proof of alien life and turning it off to instead go outside to live a life fulfilled. Seriously, if you think this is alien life, you're the one that needs an x-ray to find whatever it is that's pushing down on the logical reasoning part of your brain. Following this enormous blunder, I then wasted my university years not playing Fallout New Vegas and instead chasing women. Unsuccessfully, of course. I mean, look at me, I look like David Bowie crossed with the annoying orange. Then in around 2015, I loaded up my Xbox 360 and saw that Fallout New Vegas had been released for Xbox Game Pass. And this just meant I could play it for free. And I thought, okay, yeah, sure. Maybe now it was worth a go.
And so here's where I thought it'd be fun to give a very quick running narrative of the very first time I played Fallout New Vegas, focusing on the most notable scenes. So, Luna, what are you doing?
I have built a radio device. Help is on the way.
Who's she gonna call? Run the clips.
Okay, here we go. This opening is pretty boring, and this first quest is really slow. What, we're here at another town with almost nothing in it. Alright, this is getting pretty interesting. Oh my god, what has happened here? Yeah, okay, this game is pretty cool. No. This game is great. Oh my god, I'm playing the best game ever made. What? How is this possible? And I got it for free. This is like Stephen King offering out a free lamb shank with every copy of The Shawshank Redemption. But why is Fallout New Vegas so good? Well, I'm gonna gush hard, so sit back, relax, and pull out an umbrella to stem the tide of fanboy splashback.
So someone has contacted Cats Protection, and apparently it's illegal to entrap cats in cardboard boxes, so I'm just gonna have to let her out before we continue with the video. Alright then, out you come. Oh no. Luna?
Yes, human, it was me.
You did all of this? But why?
You've put off reviewing New Vegas for years. I've locked you in this room to make sure you finally do it. Luna, out!
Well, I do hate being held captive.
So the game begins with Chandler from Friends laying down some serious trash talk.
Maybe cons kill people without looking them in the face. But I ain't a fink. Dig?
Oh, the language in this game.
So the character we play as is a courier here, and we're trying to deliver that platinum chip. And this guy, Benny, steals it and then shoots me in the head. Fortunately though, this gunshot doesn't kill us and we wake up in a doctor's office in the town of Goodsprings. And from here, the game properly starts. We go outside, get a million fucking messages. Okay, thanks, got it. Yup, good, great. Amazing! Meet the town's inhabitants and learn about the game's mechanics. And depending on how you look at this part of the game, it's either one of the best openings of all time or honestly quite bad. Let's discuss.
Hardly anyone I know has played this game, and the people I do know who have played it gave up after the first few hours. It's hardly a glowing reception, is it? I'm definitely not gonna drink this.
I think the main issue in this opening is you wake up, go outside, and everything is brown, flat, and a little uninspiring. In Fallout 3, you walk out into the wasteland seeing the whole world before you, and if I had feelings. But in Fallout New Vegas, things are much slower and smaller. Most of the characters you meet are pretty standard people too, and even the surrounding areas are pretty unimpressive. Again, pretty soon after leaving the vault in Fallout 3, you find a very convincingly designed shantytown with a really cool sheriff and an undetonated nuclear bomb at the bottom.
Okay, speaking of nuclear, I may have had a small bit of that drink.
Fallout New Vegas does of course have great set pieces like these, but it takes a while for them to trickle in, and thus the game fails to grab the player's attention right away. I think it's fair to say then that New Vegas' opening is a bit of a failure. No, I can't do this anymore, are you all mad? This opening may be a bit unsmexy pace-wise, but in terms of its design, it's an absolute delight. It manages to convey exactly what New Vegas is going to be like overall as a game, but it does it all within the confines of one town. Listen. You wake up and you find that Goodsprings is about to be attacked by a group called the Powder Gangers. But they don't just turn up right away and fight you. No. It begins with you witnessing the leader of the town and the leader of the Powder Gangers arguing. And from here, you formulate a plan of how you're going to help. The outcome of your plan, though, is entirely dependent on the character you just finished designing. If you chose high speech, you can convince the town leader to join you. High barter, and you can convince the town shopkeep to give you extra supplies. High explosives, Easy Pete will trust you with explosives. And high survival will do absolutely nothing because it's utter shite.
Skills in this game constantly change the way that you interact with characters and the game world, and the opening makes sure you understand this right away.
But even more impressive is while exploring the town and flexing your big gun skills, you learn all about the Powder Gangers. They quickly stop being some faceless group of raiders, and you learn all about their history, their goals, why they have such a dumb name. You can even speak to their leader at length and ask him loads of questions before the final fight happens. See, what Fallout New Vegas nails every time, and why I think it's so good, is that it provides the player with a constant stream of context. Oh well.
I'll take 5 copies then. No. 10. 84, generally favourable. Nah, 110 out of 100 provides context.
And I know it sounds a bit naff, but Fallout New Vegas almost always makes sure you understand a faction before you make the decision to help or oppose them. And it usually does this by making you get to know individual people from within the factions really well. This is a trick Black Mirror often incorporates, where it spends most of the episode ingratiating you to the main characters before it starts to torture them, except Fallout New Vegas isn't derivative shite. And sure, it's slow-paced and a bit grey, but you leave Goodsprings with a complete understanding of what you're in for with New Vegas. Character-focused narrative, RPG elements that actually turn up, and a game engine about as stable as a uranium bomb.
So we leave Goodsprings and march into the desert. And even if the main game hasn't grabbed you yet, the old-timey Wild West songs on the radio are definitely for everyone. And if you're lucky, you might even hear that enchanting song.
To the town of our Freya rode a stranger one fine day. Hardly spoke to folks around him, didn't have too much to say. No one dared to ask his business, no one dared to make a slip. For the stranger there among them had a big iron on his hip. Big iron on his hip. Big iron, big iron. When he tried to match the ranger with the big iron on his hip. Big iron on his hip.
I really hope we don't have to cut that because of copyright.
I think you should cut it because you can't sing.
Big iron, big iron. In Fallout 3, you exit into the wasteland ready to continue the incredibly important task of tracking down your missing father. And sure, you should probably go and look for him, but from the moment the game gets going, the importance of this task melts away and you inevitably get distracted and wander off. And I think the game encourages this attitude a little bit, made clear by the fact that you start off basically in the middle of the map.
Now this freedom is what initially drew me to Fallout 3. But as with Fallout 3 and many other games like it, I found that being able to go anywhere at any time makes it impossible for the game to really have a well-paced story.
Like, remember in Die Hard where John McClane gets bored of fighting terrorists so goes home to complete the Get Watch quest and accidentally bumps into Chandler from Friends? No, it doesn't happen because it would make no sense. If only there was a way for a game to be completely open world while still retaining complete control over the pace of the story. Oh, hi, Mark. Fallout New Vegas' open world design is complete genius, as it perfectly combines a well-paced linear story with free roaming exploration. Okay, let's go. You start the game in Goodsprings here, and your first task is to go to Prim in the south here, as it houses the courier office where you can learn more about the package that was stolen from you. However, even from Goodsprings, you can see New Vegas glowing tantalizingly away up north. So you of course say, fuck it, this is a Fallout game, and begin a jaunty adventure up north towards New Vegas. An adventure full of interesting characters, side quests, and what are those friendly looking guys off in the distance? Oh my god, oh my god, oh my god! So this path is off limits, and the only other path that goes north is this one here. And if you travel up it, you'll eventually bump into a group of quarry workers who will inform you that their quarry has been overrun by a nest of death claws. And let me tell you, your high on arms skill isn't going to help you with this one, buddy. Oh, I'm so sorry. And so this way is off limits too. This means the only real option you have here is to go south. See, what Fallout New Vegas does, especially early on, is it gives you the freedom to explore a decent portion of the general area you're in, as you'd expect from these kind of games. But when you start to roam too far from the route you need to take to do the main story, it puts an organic difficulty block in the way. What most games would do to control your movements is put a giant impassable mountain or a locked door in your way. In this game though, you can go north to New Vegas right away if you want, but you have to be very good at the game or have built the right kind of character. It feels really good to have the option to try, but also nice to know there are some challenging areas you can work towards being able to complete later on.
And it doesn't just use difficult combat to direct your movements. There are also areas with high radiation that control where you go. And this is quite unusual, as it didn't really happen in Fallout 3. I think that drink may have been radioactive.
I'm glad I'm nowhere near you.
Fallout 3 did have locations with lots of radiation, but they were often quite small areas, and because the game was so open, by the time you actually stumbled on these, you likely had so much radaway that if you poured it all through Hoover Dam, you'd make enough hydroelectric energy to power the entire Mojave, not to mention most of the universe, so radiation areas were never a problem. In New Vegas though, the areas with radiation are much larger, and you find quite a few of them in the early game. This means you have very limited resources to deal with the radiation damage, so you'll have to strategize if you're going to go in now or come back later better equipped. As a result of all these organic blockages, you generally have to take this path to get to New Vegas, even though it isn't the most direct route. But because the game is still very open along this route, I imagine most people travel to New Vegas like this. So you still get to find loads of random locations, characters, and side quests, but the main story itself is still being fed to us at a pace the developers have some control over. And can I just say how good it feels to finally be wary of radiation in a game called fucking Fallout. In Fallout 1, radiation was scary. A good example of this was when you finally made it to the location called The Glow. You'd arrive, the screen would load up, and you have received a large dose of radiation. Now this is a message that would severely fuck up anyone's day, so even though it's just a video game, my heart still jumped a beat the first time I read this. But also, if you hang out at this place for too long, while you're on your way back home, you will get interrupted with, you feel very nauseous, you are very sick, your hair is falling out, you are hemorrhaging violently and continuously, the vomit is stained red from your blood, your skin is falling off your bones. Fuck me!
In Fallout 3 it's fine, you just IV yourself up like me because I definitely drank the whole bottle.
So far then, I've repeatedly implied the story in this game is the greatest thing since sliced bread. But why is this? Well, around the time you leave Prim, you basically know that Benny, the person who stole your platinum chip and shot you in the head, can be found in New Vegas. And a decent part of the game is spent traveling these main roads to find him. Along these roads, though, we learn that the game, as it stands, has two major factions fighting for the fate of the Mojave. The NCR, who are an organized military group with a centralized government, and the Legion, which is a collection of nomad tribes and slaves combined to form an army run by a singular dictator called Caesar. They're both here because they're fighting for control of Hoover Dam in the east, because whoever holds that not only holds all the hydroelectric power in the area, but also most of the clean drinking water. It's important, yo. At this point in the game though, you only ever see the NCR about, as they are the current occupying force in this area.
Many people you meet also talk about the Legion too, but you don't ever really see any of them. You hear about how they're really bad guys, but this is a Fallout game. Everyone's bad. Remember what a mean voice that Talon Company merc had in Fallout 3?
No, I don't think so.
Hey, stop that.
So honestly, you don't really give the Legion much thought. Eventually on your travels, you see a huge structure in the distance, which you go to and learn that it's a monument to the NCR and the Nevada Rangers, who recently joined forces to take on the Legion. But all the troops here aren't happy about it. Not only was this monument a complete waste of resources, the troops talk about how they're not being properly utilized here, and they aren't getting the support they need. A sniper is particularly worried about smoke she sees coming from the town of Nipton. It isn't the Legion, as they're stationed off to the east, but something bad is happening. So you travel towards the town, and as you approach, you see things are clearly not alright. The music City of the Dead from Fallout 1 and 2 fades in, and that's when you meet him.
Smell that air! Couldn't you just drink it like booze?
You enter Nipton to find the people who used to live there crucified and burnt, and a member of Caesar's Legion eventually addresses you with a voice so cool it even warms my icy heart with a cool island song.
Don't worry. I won't have you lashed to a cross like the rest of these degenerates. It's useful that you happen by.
Now, I'm not saying I'm a member of his fan club or anything, but you know, Volpez, he's a pretty cool guy.
He explains to you that the lottery was a way to decide how people of the town would be punished. Beheaded, burnt on tires, crucified. This guy you find came second in the lottery, and as he says it,
they beat my fucking legs with hammers.
Only the one winning number got to go free, and we all saw the result of that.
Oh my god, smell that air!
Everything about the way this encounter is set up is genius, and in my mind, the game has been building towards this moment from the second you woke up in that doctor's house. If the game was fully open world like Fallout 3, for example, they simply wouldn't have been able to pace the Legion's incredibly shocking introduction so well. And I think it works even better when you think that Fallout 3 never ever got this real. Sure, super mutants kidnapped and ate people, but all you ever really saw was their victims in shopping trolleys. And raiders in Fallout 3, yeah, they'd kill and maim people, but you never really got any gory details on it. I think people definitely expected New Vegas to have the same sort of tone, and without warning,
They stood and watched as their fellows were butchered, crucified, and burned.
Okay, maybe he's not so cool.
The other great thing about this encounter too is after it, the game becomes almost entirely about the conflict between the NCR and the Legion. The conflict that scene has hopefully made you very interested in. We are of course still traveling to New Vegas to find Chandelier from Friends, but the game has handed us another major storyline to follow. New Vegas's map also opens up quite a bit from this point, and the game starts to play a bit more like Fallout 3, in which you can wander around mostly freely as a random adventurer, meeting fun characters and gathering really well-written side quests. But New Vegas is still quite different from Fallout 3, in that, as I say, the side quests you gather are mostly related to the main story about the NCR and the Legion.
Now, to show you why I think Fallout New Vegas's approach is better, let's talk about television in the 90s.
I told you to only review New Vegas. What are you doing?
I knew you'd be on board.
TV prior to the early 90s was hugely unserialized when you compare it to TV today. The Next Generation, which started in the late 80s, for example, was almost entirely a collection of episodes that had absolutely nothing to do with the ones before or after. Now, the draw here was that you could tune into any episode and you'd easily be able to understand what was happening. But it also meant the show couldn't really build on any complex ideas or stories over the course of an entire season. A good example of this is there's a famous episode of The Next Generation where Picard is brutally interrogated for what seems like weeks by a Cardassian officer.
Look, 6 years old!
Gripping stuff. You can see why he played Squidward in Star Trek Squidward.
The episode, of course, ends with Picard being freed, but later on he privately admits that he had been broken and would have told the Cardassian who tortured him anything he asked, military secrets and all. So how does the next episode follow up on this horrifying conclusion? How can the show go on if the captain of the Federation flagship is a broken man? Well, here's how the next episode begins.
That he was, in fact, Murdered.
Murdered?
Oh, you have got to be fucking kidding. A lot of TV back then just wasn't serialized, so the thrilling idea of having the Federation's best man being a broken mess, boring, had to be dropped. This more retro style of storytelling I've just described,
Please state the nature of the medical emergency.
has always reminded me of Fallout 3.
Please state the nature of the medical emergency.
In that there wasn't really a central narrative as the game ran on. Now, in the early 90s, television started to rebel against this style, and many shows with long-running stories in them were introduced, like The X-Files and Deep Space Nine, which is the greatest TV program of all time. But they of course didn't go full serialization like we're used to today. That would have been too big a sudden change for audiences, so they still peppered in quite a few random fun episodes that had nothing to do with the larger story. I'd argue that Fallout New Vegas slots itself into this early 90s TV groove perfectly. See, as you explore the Mojave, almost everywhere you go there is a strong central story of the NCR versus the Legion running through it, and this keeps the stakes continually very tense and complex. But there are still many random locations you can go to that have nothing to do with any of it, and that's when you can have jaunty fun adventures and forget all your problems. Oh my god, what is that? It's the perfect balance, and to me it only adds to why this is basically the perfect game. Even Friends had this formula. It had a lot of silly episodes, yes, but it still had gripping story arcs that carried over an entire season. You know, like when Chandler from Friends adopted that chicken and duck, and I was gonna make fun of this scene, but it is actually really funny. Godspeed, Matthew Perry.
So you see, Luna, that tangent all about TV made sense in the end.
Yes.
You know, we're getting good at this. We could form a permanent show like this. You should let me out of here.
Yes.
Oh wait, no, I think she's stuck on a loop.
Yes.
Yes.
Eventually then, we make it to New Vegas to confront Benny, but before we do that, we get called into the Lucky 38, and we go up to meet the game's third major faction. Mr. House. Now, we only really communicate with Mr. House using this computer screen, but without a doubt, he is the greatest character the Fallout series has produced thus far.
See, some bad things are happening in the Mojave, with no good outcome on the cards. That was, yeah. And suddenly turns up Robert House, the CEO of Robco, with loads of really good solutions. And what's even better is we already know who he is.
We've seen his name on every single computer terminal in both Fallout 3 and New Vegas, and his company has invented loads of things we know really well. The Pip-Boy, Sentry Bots, Protectrons, even in the first games we see his iBots, Mr. Handys, and Robo-Brains. He's huge. He's like the Elon Musk of Fallout. And so, ignoring that comparison, amidst all this chaos, he just turns up and effectively offers the world full salvation. After he's been in the game for about 5 minutes, it's likely that you already regard him as the best option for taking over the Mojave. See, there's really no way to explain what makes Fallout New Vegas so great beyond just saying it's really excellently written, and Mr. House is our prime example of this. Based on what we've seen before meeting him, Mr. House is basically the most successful and capable man of all time. But what is so brilliant is that his dialogue and voice acting completely back this up. His voice actor, the late René Auberjonois, is in my humble opinion one of the greatest actors of all time, and he brings Mr. House to life perfectly. There is a moment where if you refuse to give him the platinum chip he's hired you to deliver, he completely loses it, and it's without a doubt one of my favourite parts of any game.
How shall I put this? Do you really think I'm going to let an upstart come into my home and ransom my property to me? I spent 2 centuries searching for the platinum chip. It's my invention, my property, mine! Now be a good courier and deliver it!
Shortly after meeting House, you also meet the head of the Legion, Caesar, and he is just as excellently written. With everything you've seen, you probably expect him to be some kind of madman, and although he kind of is, he's also pretty highly educated. Just the way he talks about books is quite scary.
There's a lot of good information in old books.
His philosophical views are pretty interesting as well. He claims that because the Legion is so different from the NCR, when they meet in conflict and are destroyed, they will come together to form a new, even greater synthesis. And most importantly of all, he's able to articulate why he believes his horrible method of leadership is actually the best option in a way that you can easily understand. Honestly, it's really beautiful. See, the best villains are the ones you can relate to. In Fallout 4, I couldn't understand for a singular second what the fuck Father was up to or what he was planning.
Well, that's hard to explain. That's a difficult question. I know there's more for us to discuss, but now that's the question. I promised answers, and answers you shall have. But I need...
Just admit it, you don't know what your own plan is. And I am not being funny here. I feel more fatherly love and guidance from fucking Caesar himself.
I will order my Praetorians to hack you to death with their machetes for my entertainment.
Finally, someone who gets me.
And from here, that's it really. The rest of the game is about deciding if you're going to help the Legion, the NCR, or Mr. House take control of Hoover Dam and thus the Mojave. There is also, of course, a fourth option, which I haven't covered, where you can take over the Mojave with this friendly robot called Yes Man.
It's what Benny always called me. Probably because I'm programmed to be so helpful.
See, Luna? Why can't you be an easygoing TV personality like Yes Man? Yeah, maybe you should change back.
The point is though, no matter what side you look at, they each have well thought out pros and cons that most importantly conflict with each other. The NCR wants rights for its citizens and the Legion believes in slavery. The NCR has serious drug and alcohol problems and the Legion prohibits those items. The NCR is like a modern government and the Legion believes modern governments literally caused the nuclear war that ended the world, and that's such a smart argument to throw at us. But I still find Mr. House to be the most interesting faction. He is set up so that when you meet him, you think he's the good guy, a philanthropist who genuinely has all the answers. And he himself, of course, talks at length about how good he is. Even when you suggest that he is a dictator like Caesar, he says,
I prefer the term autocrat.
Well, that just sounds like a dictator with extra steps.
Oh, la-di-da, someone's gonna get laid in the wasteland.
He constantly acts like he's not capable of being irrational due to his impartial nature, and yet, as we saw earlier, that isn't true at all. But because he's so well written, it took until my second playthrough to actually see through his very charming, very intelligent garbage.
Oh, and don't you think I've forgotten about Benny? We of course eventually catch up with him and...
What in the goddamn?
What in the goddamn? What in the goddamn? Okay, so I've rambled on like Fallout New Vegas is perfect for a good while now. And it is, and you have to accept it. This is my autocratic channel. Mine! Now be a good viewer and deliver it. Accept it.
Sorry, I got a bit carried away there. So what is there about this game that I don't like? Well, as we all know, it does crash a lot. But honestly, this has just never bothered me that much. And I'm gonna tell you why. Recently, I've been playing a lot of Baldur's Gate 3. A review is coming, which really is quite a janky game. My character seems to have a totally gormless look on their face half the time, and the animations on a lot of characters feel a bit off. But you know, it never really took me out of things. It's just the quality of the writing and the voice acting in this game is so good, I find I just kind of unconsciously disregard these other issues. And it's the same story with Starfield, but in reverse. Bethesda, bless them, they have worked so hard on this game, and it's...
You'll notice there's also an intensity slider, so you can crank up the intensity of his age.
You know, it's alright, but the writing is light years behind games like New Vegas or Baldur's Gate. So when Cowboy Man here enters and leaves a room 6 times in a row for no obvious reason, I'm immediately sucked out of things. Partly because I wasn't sucked in the first place. I find I'm so immersed by the writing and voice acting in New Vegas that its stability issues just never really bother me that much. Jesus, I sound like I'm in one of those job interviews where you try and turn a weakness into a strength.
Well, the game's pretty unstable, but if you think about it, it's because the writing is so good.
Okay, alright. I really don't like how you can't be a spy in this game. For example, at one point, Caesar here has a tiny wee headache. And if you want to get close to him to learn more about this headache so you can eventually further it, you of course need to do some quests for him to gain his trust. However, when you do this, people in the game will turn on you and refuse to listen to any reasoning. For example, when my old pal Boone here asks why I'm helping them, I say, I'm infiltrating their organization. I have to gain their trust.
I don't care what the reasons are.
And then he fucks off! The thing is though, this game has so much choice in what you can do, who you can help, and how you can help them. So it's no surprise really that they had to put a limit on how complex the characters' reactions are to you. I mean, they only had 18 months to make this game. Jesus, give them a break.
See, the game doesn't give you all the choice, but that's because it gives you too much choice.
Another real genuine problem this game has is the load time. For example, you get given a safe house inside the Lucky 38 to store your items, and getting to this room from the wasteland is an absolute nightmare. See, you can't fast travel into this room. You can't fast travel into the building this room's in. You can't fast travel to the outside of the building this room's in. You can only fast travel to the next street over to the building that has the room in. So it goes like this. I need to get to my home base. So you open the map, fast travel to the Strip North Gate, load, walk to this door that leads to the New Vegas Strip, load, walk across the strip all the way to the Lucky 38, load, walk across the casino floor in the Lucky 38, load, and now we are in our home base. And if you were playing this back in the day on an Xbox 360 like I was, fast traveling took about 20 seconds and loading into new rooms took 10. So just traveling to your home base would mean a minimum loading time of 50 seconds every single time. Modders have even addressed this issue because of how utterly insane it is. I mean, Fallout New Vegas is great, I love it. How the game concludes the struggle for power in the Mojave is also obviously exceptionally well written. Oh, what a surprise! Not only do you get 4 completely different endings depending on what faction you chose to help, the game also concludes by explaining to you how your actions over the entire game affected basically all the other major settlements across the Mojave. Prim, for example, is just one tiny town you pass through early on in the game that is missing a sheriff, and before you leave you can help with providing it with one of 4 possible new leaders. Meaning Prim will get a completely different ending for each leader you pick. But also a different ending for how that leader reacts to whatever faction wins at the end of the game, and oh no, I've gone cross-eyed. The point is, New Vegas manages to completely nail giving a conclusive ending to every major settlement in the game. This realistically means there are a near infinite number of totally unique endings possible for any one playthrough, as you see a different combination each time, and the ending is totally different for every single player. The only way to really demonstrate the scale of what Obsidian has done is if you search for a compilation of every possible ending to Fallout New Vegas. It adds up to half an hour of cutscenes. It's like they saw Todd Howard's slight fabrication about the number of possible endings in Fallout 3.
As of last week, we're over 200 endings. That is not an exaggeration.
And well, they took that personally. Overall then, both the main story and the random adventuring you do has been extremely well planned and well written. The skills, perk and trait systems are perfectly integrated into both the combat and story, and the soundtrack, visuals and tone all work together to create a gorgeous Wild West atmosphere. Wow. There we go, that's it, I'm done. I can't go on forever. It's time you let me go, She's gone? No. She wouldn't forget about me. Oh yeah, she's forgotten about me. So from where you're sitting, it must seem like a 24-carat run of bad luck. The truth is, the game was rigged from the start. Oh, for God's sake! Also, if you enjoyed this video, please consider taking a look at the Absolute Nightmare box set. This video and this box set were made totally independently by me without any sponsors. So looking at this box set is the best way to support the channel. And everything in it is really high quality, carefully curated by me. And sexy, yeah. Don't say sexy on your channel, Matt.